Everybody, welcome to another scintillating episode of the live stream of Max's Models. We are on air. And first off, everybody that's here, I'm showing 62 people so far. Thanks for coming in. And let's have a little bit of fun. So, oh, hey, great. John, you made it. John Fastport's here. One of the things I thought we would talk about tonight, amongst many other things that we have in mind, I want to talk about, well, YouTube channels for models. Other YouTube channels other than this one. I want to talk about commuter airliners, and I want to talk about when people over-detail their models. I got some slides put together. By the way, some of you guys, I have Steve of Steve's Model Mania with me on the communicator right here.
Hi, troopers.
And Steve, can you give a 5 count so we can get a voice check?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, guys, if you can hear that okay, just let me know. Paul, glad you could make it. Bill, most of the gang is here. Orange Tabby's here. So Ken will probably be joining us later. He had to go get some food to feed his family. I mean, gosh, priorities, man. Anyway, he'll probably be chiming in later, and we'll see if we can merge the call. Max, your volume is never as high as the intro music. Yeah, they're two different sources. I've got this thing cranked up to 11. It's bouncing in the yellow. It's bouncing in the yellow arc. It's where they say it's supposed to be. You know, yellow green. That's when you're supposed to be at your best. I could always get closer. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Seems like most folks are hearing you. Okay. Very good. So we shall proceed. And I emailed a few of the folks who have YouTube channels. Mark in Montana and John over at Fastsports and a few other folks, and let them know we'd be talking about their YouTube channels tonight. Unfortunately, although I'm glad to see John is here, I thought he might, apparently there's some kind of big important family function, but it's, you know, he's got his priorities straight. He's here instead of there. You know, cool. Props for that. Unfortunately, Mark is out on the road. So, anyway, a lot of us, and we're going to talk about, I got YouTube channels from various model specialties and some that are pretty generic. Of course, a lot of them are cars, a lot of them are just planes, and some of them are like us, they're omnivores. But the first thing I thought I would talk about is some of the really great YouTube channels that, although they're what you might call model adjacent. And the first one I'm going to talk about, of course, is the Tank Museum. And I imagine if you're on this channel, you've been to their channel, and everybody knows David Fletcher, you know, the famous mustache, you know, probably in men's is a national asset in the UK. But I have found that the Tank Museum is just a great source of information when you're building pretty much any kind of armor, because if it's got tracks and it's military, they've probably done a video on it. And they give you a really close look at a lot of the armor, and we're gonna. And if anybody's wondering, yes, we're gonna get to the Chieftain also. Of course, those two are pretty much joined at the hip. If you have not been to the Tank Museum website and you have any interest in history, armor, Militaria, it's absolutely a must. If I ever do get over to the UK, you guys. One thing I love about the Brits is they are very in touch with their history. They have some of the finest museums in the world, including a lot of really fine military museums, and they have a lot of only one left kind of stuff over there. And I want to get to Duxford, and I want to get to the Tank Museum and the Imperial War Museum and all those. But the Tank Museum I find incredibly entertaining, especially when David Fletcher. And of course, they have their guest stars. They've had Lindy Page, the history guy, and a whole bunch of famous YouTubers that have gone over and done their bottom 5 tanks or their top 5 tanks. And in fact, while we're on that subject, if any armor guys out there is Ron out there, Ron or Fran, if he is, he's actually a tanker in the Army. So you guys feel free to put down your bottom or top 5 tanks. And I know I catch grief for this and have to explain myself, but I still think the Sherman tank is one of the best tanks ever made. Just because we could crank out 50,000 of them, they rarely broke down. But anyway, Tank Museum, and by the way, with only a handful of exceptions, I subscribe to all of these YouTube channels. I don't just watch my own stuff. So that is one I thought everybody would appreciate, and I absolutely think it's one of the greatest YouTube channels out there. And I can't thank the guys in Bovington enough for what they do. Look, I got to be honest with you. That channel, and between that and the Chieftain, it's really changed my attitude on about a lot of tanks. I no longer see the Panther as the magnificent wonder tank that a lot of people think it is, and I see the Sherman in a whole new light. So for all you, and I got a feeling at some point I'm going to break down and buy one of those big Shermans from Andy's hobby headquarters at some point. And by the way, we'll be getting to his YouTube channel also eventually. And Steve, I know you're more of a car guy. We're going to get to the car models a little bit down the trail.
Well, that'd be nice.
And because that's your expertise. I guess between you, me, and Ken, Ken, the slot cars and the RCs are Ken's thing. Real automobiles and model cars are your thing. And military is sort of my thing. So between the three of us, we make a reasonably intelligent YouTube channel.
We're the triumvirate of confusion.
I like that. That's going to be a t-shirt. The triumvirate of confusion. So, of course, obviously, there's Nick Moran. Now I believe he's a lieutenant colonel, if I'm not mistaken. He's been promoted from major. I believe he's already pinned on his 05 leaf, his silver oak leaf. But, of course, the Chieftain. Another channel that I'm absolutely addicted to. Every time his stuff pops up, I go and watch it. And I don't really think there's a lot I need to say about his channel. I'm pretty sure you guys are probably familiar with it. And but he's the guy who changed my opinion on the Sherman. He's done a couple of really good, very long videos on it. And when you listen to his arguments for why it's such a great tank, you really start to appreciate. And another one I had newfound respect for was the Matilda II. And I didn't realize that the M4 Sherman and the British Matilda II are the only tanks that saw combat in absolutely every theater of operation in the Second World War, including Russia, the Pacific. I never associated the Matilda II with the Pacific, but apparently there was some out there. So anyway, another great channel, which I think most of us are familiar with on the aviation side, of course, is the wonderful work done by Mike Machat over at Celebrating Aviation with Mike Machat. I always check his videos out as soon as he comes up, and he's very friendly to the glue troopers too. He's a model builder, and he's done quite a few videos on models. And being a professional aviation artist, you look at that on the far right where he shows one of the P-51s he painted, and you realize the research that he does when he did his artwork. He's retired now, but the research was on par with anything we do, because I know a lot of model builders are big into researching their models. And he's a fantastic source. He comes up with great things to talk about. And I've had the pleasure of spending some time with him in person. He's absolutely a wonderful person, a true gentleman. So
I'm amazed at the model collections he gets access to.
Oh my God. He was able to get access to all those Aurora kits and Revell kits that were still in the boxes from the 50s, still complete, not to mention those often one-of-a-kind desktop or company corporate models. And You know, there was a time when some of those models he has, like I think it was the proposed nuclear airplane or something. One of them he had the big wooden one that came apart. There was a time that those were actually classified. I'll tell you a little. I'll tell you a little story about desktop display models. By the way, just as a complete aside, that's Ken. Let's see if I can merge him. Hang on. Stand by. And put Steve on hold. Okay, I got to put you on hold, Steve. Okay, Ken, you there?
I am here.
All right, I'm going to try and merge the call. I got Steve on the other line. Operator, stand by. Conference call, merging calls.
Communication terminated.
What the heck? Anybody there? Hello, Barranca Tower. Folks, I hit the button that said merge calls. I did not hang up on anyone. Ow! Jesus, that's loud. Okay, I hit the merge call button.
That didn't work so well.
No, that did not. Okay, let me call Steve and see if I can get him. Hold on.
Okay.
Technology. Phone.
Yep.
Where's Steve?
This is with everybody.
Yeah. Steve, call. Okay, you may get cut out while it calls him. We'll see. I wonder if it's called.
Hello.
Hey, okay, I'm going to try to merge. I just hit the merge button and it cut. Let's try it again. Merging calls. TikTok. Whoa. Okay. Hello, Branca Tower.
I'm here.
Okay.
Are we all here?
Roll call. Ken.
Hey.
Steve.
Yeah.
Max. Oh yeah, that's me. Okay, we're operational. Okay, so we got everybody online. And Ken, you're late to the staff meeting. So anyway, we're talking about Mike Machat and his magnificent channel. And Steve, you were about to say you were amazed by
The collections that he gets access to, especially he had those collection of gift sets.
Yes, the gift sets
from Revell. They were just, I mean, you don't see them anywhere. Not to mention the handmade demonstrator models or wind tunnel models that he's able to get a hold of. And some of them are his. I mean, they're just amazing.
They are. I don't think he's with us. I could give him a call and try to rope him in, but I'd hate to bushwhack him if he's busy doing something.
Well, if he's not, he'll probably send us a text or a comment, and we'll include him in.
All right. Well, you know what? What the heck? Let's give it a shot. I think I got his number. I don't see.
Hey, Fred.
Okay. This is normally I arrange with him in advance because he's a professional.
Did you order something?
What? Ken, are you in the restaurant?
No, my son-in-law is asking me if I ordered something.
Oh, okay. Okay, you guys might get cut out. I'm going to try and... Okay.
This is Mike.
Hey, Mike, it's Max.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm on the live stream. I'm sorry to bushwhack you like that.
No problem.
Let me see if I can turn it up a little bit. I'm not hearing you real well. I'm going to try and merge. I got Ken and Steve on the line. We were talking about you and your channel, and I thought I didn't see in the comment section. I thought I should give you a call.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to talk to you. I wasn't tuned in because I'm working on a project. Go ahead.
Oh no, I can let you go. It's just I tell you what, I'll just talk to you, huh?
Max, I got time now. I wasn't watching. I'm
okay. I'm going to try and
fire away.
Okay, I'm going to try and merge here. And last time it cut us all out, so if I hang up, it's Sprint doing it.
You don't need to merge them. We heard them.
Okay. Oh, okay. Mike, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Steve, you were bringing up the models. Go ahead.
But may I make a suggestion first?
Yes. Yeah.
When you move into the new house, I think you should get a switchboard.
I'm going to have to hire staff. So Steve was asking about the collectors. What was it? The collector sets?
The gift sets.
The gift sets.
Those Revell gift sets you had on one of your videos, they were just amazing. I mean, Where did you?
Where on earth did you find those intact?
Well, those are all right. Am I on the air now?
You are.
Yes, you are.
You are on the interweb.
They're from a private collection.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. They're spectacular.
Yeah, they were. There was a story about a collector who The short version is he got the stuff directly from Revell. It was never in a store. There was never any tape on the sides of those boxes. They were untouched. You'd open them up, and the direction sheets and decals were on the bottom underneath the parts. They'd never been touched. They were just absolute 100% virgin kits. And a guy lived near the factory was able to get those before they ever went out for distribution, and that's what those gift sets were.
Incredible.
They're amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
to say nothing of the actual handmade, prototypes that you have of potential aircraft.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, it was just very fortunate to be right place at the right time and connect with the right people. But those items that you just described were never in stores. They were never handled. They were never sold at a hobby shop. They were just pristine specimens of those kits. And what the irony. I don't know if you guys got into this before I got on here, but the irony is that the gift sets were just, because they were so expensive, they were $4.98 in the 50s, which just add a zero today.
Mm-hmm.
They were just priced really outside the market, and even beyond a Christmas present or a special birthday gift from grandma or your favorite aunt or something. Those things just didn't sell. And so the hobby shops had them, and they couldn't sell them. They stick them in the back room, and then whatever happened. But today, of course, they're the coveted, ultra rare, very very expensive pieces, and it's just ironic that you just have to wait 60 years, and then things coming in. But
we've discussed doing that at Atlantis, and the prices are just too restrictive.
Isn't that something?
You just couldn't do it. They're just
Steve,
you'd have a gift set that would be $90.
Well, it's funny you mention Atlantis, and I know they repop old kits. Real quick, I want to throw out one thing before I forget, because I didn't have a chance to put a slide together, because I got an email from Atlantis. I mean, their regular one they put out to everyone just before I started the live stream tonight. I had told you guys a while back that if you wanted to get any of Atlantis' helicopters, the Sikorsky or the Apache, that they were going out of production for apparently some kind of twisted legal reasons. But anyway, Atlantis just put in their last email, they found a bunch of bagged, not Apaches, Cheyennes. They found a bunch of bagged Cheyenne kits in the back room. And they're selling them for like $14 or $15. No decals, no box, but it's the kit. If you didn't get your Cheyenne and you want one, get on it now, because this is not. Those things are going to go quick. Because sadly they're going bye-bye. But that story is an hour by itself. Mike, and again, I really want to apologize for calling you without warning. I don't normally do that.
Not a problem, pal. Not a problem at all. Go ahead.
But
Mike, I have another question. Those kits not kits, the handmade planes that were made in the model shops of the aircraft companies.
Yes.
How many of them did they make? 1, 2?
It's a good question, and the answer was it was an on-demand situation, meaning if they were making them for marketing, they would make maybe 100. And if it was a proposal going to the Pentagon, it was 1.
Okay.
Well, you had that.
Go ahead.
Well, you had that big one that came apart and had like the nuclear reactor inside it or something. I take it that was a one-off. I think you had one that sort of disassembled and showed the inside, and I forget it was
the nuclear-powered bomber from Convair. Yeah.
Okay.
The B-37, B-60.
Well, anyway, I take it that was a one-off, or as far as you know.
1 or 2, maybe the most would have been like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a special project, and they were made again. It was based on the usage. In other words, I know at Douglas we'd have a proposal, and it was all the rage for the airliner geeks to get these models where it would be like a DC-10 in PSA colors, or airlines that did not use them. Or never bought them, I should say. But they would make a series of models as proposals for the marketing departments, or they were tools to help sell an airplane. So you'd see something like an Ozark Lockheed 1011, or you know what I'm saying?
I love it.
Just to try to reel them in.
I have to stop myself here, because we actually had an Aeroflot DC-10.
Well, hey, Aeroflot wound up flying Boeings.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. I'm sitting there, having a cocktail at the Proud Bird restaurant at LAX and an Aeroflot 767 taxis out, and I just about gagged. I couldn't believe it, So, yeah, times change. But I'm just saying we had those kinds of models, and those would have been made maybe a dozen at the most,
We used to do that at Lesney. We wanted somebody to take one of our, Matchbox cars or planes as a promo, and we'd just paint it up and sticker it up and make a handful of them.
Right.
And somebody would go and try and sell it to them.
Well, the other thing I want to touch on real quick, I have a screen grab of your web page up here while we're talking, by the way, just FYI.
Thank you.
One of the pictures, no worries. One of the pictures that would just happen to be in is the pencil drawing / painting of the P-51. And I wanted to ask you real quick, because I talked about it before I called you very briefly. I said that, when these artists do these pictures, a lot of times they do a ton of research, just like a lot of the really avid, serious model builders do. And I thought just real quick, before we go on to the next thing, you might talk about the research you do for a painting, because I know a lot of modelers do a lot of the real serious guys do a ton of research on an airframe specific build.
Yeah, that's a great question. If I can just take a minute, I'll be glad to dive into that if you'd like.
Sure, go for it.
The whole thing, there's a prelude to the answer is that I've created something I call Machat's Law, which states that no two airplanes are ever painted the same, and an airplane never looks the same, a year apart, or the inconsistency of airplane markings. I'm just getting it. People say this is the definitive. I got photos. I was there. I saw it. This is the definitive. This was the way the airplane looked. And my answer is that day.
That's true. I've seen dioramas that had a date. this was the BF 109 of Gustav Lothar on March 3rd, 1943.
That's it. That's where I'm going. And an airliner, Max, this, an airliner goes in for a D check, and they do touch up on the paint job, and suddenly the end numbers are in front of the L4 door instead of above. There are all these kinds of little changes. So I say that as a prelude to the answer about the P-51, is that in general, and I can't speak for all aviation artists, but I know with my historical projects where I'm capturing a moment in time or documenting something that happened, it all starts with a story. And the story usually comes, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, it comes from the pilot. So in the case of the P-51, I had the honor of meeting Clyde, Colonel East. He was such a darling guy, a real Southern gentleman, just a prince of a guy. And he's telling me this story about flying, making a pass over a bomber he just shot down to get a proof, photo that proves the kill.
Was that that was a photo recon Mustang, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an F-6D, but it was modified in the field. There's Machat's Law again. The cameras were in a totally different place than on a factory-built F6. Okay.
There you go.
So I've already, the oblique camera was in the star and bar, and you have it in the wrong place. It was a field-modded F6. Okay. And Clyde is telling the story about this pass, and the recall was, as I said in the video, was just mind-blowing. What he remembered. And I've heard it said that when there's adrenaline flowing through your body, it etches memory. I don't know if you ever heard that, but it's just like if things are happening and guys are describing stuff from years ago, it's because they were, there was adrenaline surging through their body and it just froze those images. So he's describing a little town on the horizon, a farmhouse with smoke coming out of the chimney, and the fields, what they look like, and then guys running toward the plane from a German staff car stopped on the road. I mean, I was just incredible. And he's describing this scene, and I can see the painting. I can see it in my mind. It's like, okay, what would it be if you were above the airplane looking down, seeing exactly what he saw, what Clyde saw? And so I put the viewer above the airplane using the model. And that's also why I use models. I like to walk around them and see the painting, and it clicks into place. I'm walking around, usually looking through the camera, actually. And I'm looking at a view, and it's like, yeah, that's close. And I should mention, I also look at what else has been done before. If it's going to be a lithograph, I don't want to duplicate anything. I don't ever want to plagiarize. I don't, I want to keep it original. So I look at what everybody else has done. I'd never seen an overhead view of a P-51. I had not seen that. Okay. So now I'm on the path to how this is going to look. And then as far as the research, thank goodness, and God bless him, Clyde had everything. He had photos. He handed me the photo he took. That's in the video. He hands me this 9x9 black and white photo. He says, "Well, here's the shot." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And he had the map of Dresden. He had close-up photos of every inch of that airplane, and so it was kind of a slam dunk. Further to your question, many times you have to go and search for that, and there are multiple. There's any number of good, magazines, Squadron in Detail, walk-arounds, those kinds of things. But you have to go and it's a detective project. You got to go find it. In the case of the P-51 painting, it was just handed to me, and I had everything I needed. And then I made the point in the video that when they restored a real airplane into those markings, they used that material from me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Butch Schroeder saw the print at Oshkosh in the late 80s, the guy who owned the actual airplane, and he said, "Where did you get all that stuff?" I said, "Well, let me put you in touch with Clyde." and so, it became a family project, and he wound up restoring the airplane markings from the same exact information I used to make the painting.
Well, Mike, I just had a minor revelation because just looking at the picture, because later in this particular live stream, one of the things I'm going to be talking about is people that over detail or over accent their models.
Yes.
And I've got a bunch of slides that I made, but I just realized you did the drawing, black and white pencil on the left, which with the over amplified panel lines, which of course are very subdued when you paint it. It's just funny. I was looking for slides that show when people, over accent their panel lines on models. And I'm looking at the photo going, why is this picture talking to me? And then it dawned on me. But of course, I know that's just part of the technique you use for the drawing before you do the painting.
It's raw material, and of course it's refined. But let me, if I can add a little footnote, in terms of research, Clyde, the one thing I did not put in the video, I just didn't have time to scan it and get it in, was the marking drawing that Clyde marked up in red pen with corrections.
Okay.
I say this with great love and great respect. It was so wonderful to have his input. Thankfully, he lived like maybe a half-hour drive from my house here in L.A., so we were able to get together. But he had notes. One of the things I will never forget is, the airplane is in a climbing left turn. Okay? So where are the controls? What's the control input?
Right aileron be down a little bit.
You're there. And a little bit of up elevator and a little bit of left rudder.
Left rudder, yeah.
Climbing left turn.
The whole airplane's not in the picture I have, but yeah.
I don't know if I said that. Climbing left turn. And Clyde looks at it and he says, "Mike," he says, "you got the airplane about to do a snap roll."
Doesn't take a lot of deflection to make a Mustang move.
He says, "You just think it and it happens. You're not really moving the stick. You just think it and it happens." And so I had to remove probably 12 to 15 degrees of control surface deflection to get it correct. And then I wanted to make the point, he signed off on that drawing. I did not paint the painting until he had blessed every square inch of that image.
I love that.
And he caught all sorts of stuff, the footprints on the wing. I thought they came up from the trailing edge. And he said, no, we climbed up on the wheel and got up on the leading edge and walked over to the cockpit, and the airplane was parked in mud. So do the math, he says. But he said, the footprints aren't quite in the right place, and the gun's firing through the red tape. They tape the openings to keep rain and debris and birds and stuff out. And he said, the tape was a little different, and he was just making these little notes all over the place. And as I said, wow, they're other than the background, I will tell you that there was no artistic license whatsoever used on that airplane, none.
Well, now when you did the box art for Lidella, and I know I'm really totally shifting gears here, but when you did the box art for Lidella, and I've seen your video on that. Those were more of what you wanted it to look like than actual historical images?
Totally, yeah. Those, and again, here we are, the on-demand aspect as far as the Lidella. The purpose of the Lidella artwork is to sell the model.
Right.
So a lot of it is my input, but to be fair, I was working with an art director from the company, and he was calling many of the shots as far as where it was going to be, was the airplane banking, whatever. There was a little bit of an issue, and I don't think I'm talking out of school here. There was a little bit issue. He always wanted contrails on the jets.
Okay, all right. I can
So I
see
have a-
that for impact. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Uh,
So I have a Bonanza DC-9 over Monument Valley, with in the desert, trailing contrails at like 2,000 feet.
which you and I both know would never really happen in over Death Valley. But,
And I was pleading. I said, look, my name is going to be on this. They're going to be, please. They didn't. Oh, I got to have the contrails. Got to be. It's a jet. It's like, okay, fine. Art director's always right. And so that's why that any jet liner that I did for Liddell has contrails, whether they were there or not.
well, so he basically went Jack Linwood on you. One quick question, and Mike, you are absolutely welcome to stay as long as you like, but I just have one more question before you.
Sure.
In fact, I think it'd be great if you hang around. You might enjoy it, but whatever. Just real quick, just to give the folks watching an idea, talk about the timeline of research versus the timeline of actually doing the art.
Sure. That's a fabulous question. Again, it's a variable. Because there are projects that are, commercial projects that are art directed. My world record is 4 days for a Popular Mechanics cover.
Jesus.
Or a poster actually for the magazine that should have taken 6 or 7. And I was sick for a week afterward, but that's a whole other story. There can be those rush deadlines, but on the historical projects, the longest I ever took was a year and a half. On Free Enterprise, the shuttle that's coming off the top of the 747.
747.
Yeah. I was given the assignment from Edwards. I was artist in residence up there at that time. That would have been early 90s. And the wing commander of the test wing up there came to me and said, I understand you're just commissioned to do the approach and landing test of the Enterprise pre-flight 4 with Joe Engle and Dick Truly, Fitz Fulton flying the mothership. He said, you can't paint that until you've done it. So I was qualified. I was qualified as an Air Force artist. I had all my flight medicals. I was altitude card, the whole thing. So I was qualified to fly in the jets. He says, "We'll set it up. We'll put you in a T-38 at the test pilot school. You've got to fly those approaches before you paint it, so you understand what it feels like."
The sacrifices you made for us, Mike. The sacrifices you made.
Video on that too.
It's a dirty job, but somebody has to do it.
Good work when you can find it. Well, Mike,
video.
huh?
And I don't say that.
Didn't you do a video on that?
Yes,
He did, yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
I can send you a link, but I don't say that gloatingly. I don't say that. I'm boasting.
No, Mike, you earned your stripes.
It was
Believe me.
part of the job. So that was about a month to get that all to happen, and we made the flight. We duplicated within. I'd say we triangulated from chase plane photos the exact moment that the location of the actual launch itself. I'd say we were within probably 100 yards of the exact spot at 23,500 feet, and then we flew in the airplane 5 shuttle approaches to runway 22, and I got to actually fly one of them. Not very well, but I got to handle the airplane. So I'm a glider pilot, So
And you did talk about it.
T-38.
That is
anyway,
awesome.
It was just a stunning experience, and you don't feel the airplane plunging toward the ground. You feel the ground coming up toward you.
Well, is there a little negative G when you do the pushover, or is it?
No, we're banking off the perch at 23.5, and you're heading downhill at I think it's negative 11 degrees. You're coming down like a rock.
Yeah.
It's landing gear out, flaps up, speed brakes out, landing light retracted, and you're dropping out of the sky like a stone. You flare for the landing at 7,000 feet.
Jeez. Well, now hold on real quick. I remember from my history, they lost a couple of guys, I think, in a 2-seat F-104. I think it was back during when they thought dinosaur was going to be a thing. And
Correct,
they were doing dead sticks, basically what we would later call shuttle approaches, and they made one, and these were a couple of test pilots / astronauts.
Yes.
They made one very, very minor misstep in the flare, and it wound up killing some people.
Yeah.
So this is
actually,
fun, but it's
called
serious.
Pre-flare. Well, I don't want to get into too much detail here, but I'm just saying I got to do that, and it made the painting. I mean, it was just a whole living the experience kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with Joe Engle. I worked with Fitz Fulton. I worked with the test pilot school. I worked with, I had a Rockwell guy. I had a Boeing guy. There was a lot of detective work on that. A good example of the working with the Boeing guy, the spoiler configuration on the 747. I had a 747 captain in my home looking at the drawing, and he said, "Oh, that's wrong. The inboard spoilers would never be up in the air. That's only on the ground. That's from the squat switch on the main gear, and those only deploy on a runway. They'd never be up in the airborne." Well, guess what? Boeing modified the airplane.
I figured they had made a lot of modifications. I know the Gulfstream they made a lot of modifications.
Exactly, the Gulfstream train, but they wanted maximum drag on the 747 and maximum lift on the shuttle at the moment of separation. So the inboards indeed were fully deployed at the moment of launch, the inboard spoilers. But there was that kind of stuff to find out. And again, just much like the Clyde East story, Fitz was just, he picked up stuff that you just wouldn't believe, just this little minor points in the painting that made the freaking painting. And then the research was a year, the flying and everything else, and then the painting itself, after that year of preparation, was 10 days.
Wow. It just shocks me that you can do a year of research and get it on the canvas in 10 days. That still blows me away. I can't paint a model airplane in 10 days.
But I mean, once it's going, you're in the zone, and I work at night, and you just get in there and it get going. You did the underpainting is about 3 days, and then you start working up the final and the fine tuning and everything else. And I always say, and I don't mean this, this is the way I look at my work. Is somebody has said to me, "When do you know it's finished?" Somebody always said that. Well, when do you sign it? When do you know it's finished? It says when I can't find anything else to fix.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys go through that on the model. You look at it and you see, so you come in, see it fresh the next day, and you know what, this wingtip is a little, this is, I got a little touch-up stuff, and I do that with the painting for a day or two. And then when there's nothing left to fix, I sign it and it's done. So that was a 10-day. So the answer to your long-winded answer to your question, I'm sorry to take
No, it's
time.
great. This is good stuff.
It's great.
Nothing infuriates me more than to put a model on the shelf, 3 days later, go look at it and go, "Oh crap, I missed a spot."
Yeah, exactly.
But
the total
when you give it away,
the total time on the from start to finish, from the first phone call to the final painting, and that painting's in the Smithsonian today, so it kind
you
of
have a couple of paintings in the Smithsonian. That's not the only one, is it? Or is that the only one you have in the Smithsonian?
I have 4 in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, I thought you had some others.
Yeah. But that painting's out. That went to Udvar Hazy because at the time that's where the Enterprise was.
Right. Yeah.
So I wanted the painting for that. But the total time of that project was 18 months.
Like you seem like the Jimmy Doolittle of aviation art.
I appreciate. I so very much appreciate you guys' interest, and it's always a joy to share those stories with people like yourselves who get it. But the proper answer to the question is the time varies based on what's involved. I would say 6 months to a year on a historical project. That's about right.
But only about 10 days of that's actually doing the actual artwork. The rest is research.
7 to 10 is the painting, yes.
Wow. Mike, I want to throw a question at you that I just popped into my head because that's how I roll.
Sure.
Not including yourself, of course. Who would you say, and you can have more than one answer, is the greatest of the aviation artists?
Oh, and the greatest aviation, in my opinion?
Uh-huh.
In my opinion, the greatest aviation artist?
Yeah.
Well, it's like
that's like asking who's the greatest pilot ever.
God,
I mean,
no. No, it's not me. Hell no. I consider myself, I was very, very fortunate to get to do something in my life that I loved. And I think I did a decent job at it, but I consider myself an airplane portraitist.
Uh-huh.
I did portraits of airplanes. I'm not very good with figures. I'm not very good with landscapes. I do the machinery, and that's what I do. The people, in my estimation, who really are the very best are guys who can capture everything, every aspect of it. The pilots, the scenery, and I can count on one hand how many people can do that. I have to qualify my answer by generation.
Okay.
because in World War II there was Frank Wooten from England.
Who is my personal favorite as far as
Yeah,
what you just described.
You couldn't count every rivet, and maybe the markings weren't in the right place. It didn't matter. His stuff was so magnificent, and you were in the air with that airplane. That was all it was.
He had a way of painting the sky that was incredible.
Yeah. So there was Frank Wooten, and then he inspired people like R.G. Smith at Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
And R.G. had, and this is for real, R.G. had his career at Northrop, Douglas, McDonnell Douglas, and Boeing was 52 years.
Wow.
For 52 years. And there was a man who was so humble and so what a beautiful human being. You know, he could have played the grandpa in a TV commercial. He was just such a darling guy. And you want to talk about speed, he would crank out a painting in like a day and a half, 2 days.
Jeez.
And it would be down in the lobby of the engineering building, like, coming back from the framer, and it just took your breath away. I mean, I look at his paintings, and he had an A4, damaged A4, being refueled by an A3 Sky Warrior Operation Wet Wing, coming into the USS Forrestal in the Gulf of Tonkin on a rainy day. Okay, 6 foot painting. And I'm standing in the hallway. I used to, when I worked night shift, I would walk around the company and look at his paintings just by myself, all by myself in the hallway in the lobby, and 1 in the morning. And I'm standing. I swear to God, I'm getting the chills just thinking about this. I stood in front of that painting. It's called Operation Wet Wing. If you guys want to Google it, but it's this A4 coming in on the carrier on this wet, cloudy, crummy, gray day out in the middle of the ocean. And if I could smell the salt air, I felt cold.
Wow.
I felt wet. I could feel the mist. I mean, it was that real,
That's incredible.
So the answer to your question is generation number 1, Frank Wooten. Generation number 2, R.G. Smith. Bob McCall as an illustrator was just a huge inspiration. He became the NASA artist that did the Apollo program. And then in today's world, my dear friends Bill Phillips, William S. Phillips, who was number 1 guy of our generation, and of course my dear friend who we just lost, Craig Cadera.
Oh yeah, and, Craig gets a beautiful.
What else about Craig? I did a video about him. Craig, to me, and maybe this is the answer to your question, he'd probably have to be my favorite, in the sense that he captured the machinery the way I like to capture the machinery. Mm-hmm. But he also had the mood. He could do the R.G. Smith skies, and the he was everything. I'd have to say, of our generation, I'd say Craig Cadera.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mike. Please feel free. I'd be thrilled if you want to stay with us, but if you got to go, I understand. We're going to move on to the next thing.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Steve here. I have several of your paintings in my lair here, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The one thing that always impressed me about your work, besides the detail, but you sort of capture the history and evolution of flight with the subjects that you picked to create. But your YouTube channel is more like the video history of aviation and why things are the way they are.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I mean, it's one of the most informative things. I mean, it's like having an encyclopedia on your TV.
Well, it's also a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that people they wouldn't even find in a book because you were there.
I mean, your videos are just unbelievable. I mean, the amount of research, the detail, the photos, the stories that you're able to relay, it's just fantastic.
Oh, that means,
really
appreciate that means a lot. I thank you so much. That really means a lot. I really appreciate it.
I look forward every time I see one pop up. I'm like, oh, good, I got something to watch.
Oh yeah, there are about. We're talking about YouTube channels tonight that I watch, and yours, Mustard, and 1 or 2 or 3 other people. If it pops up, I swear to God, I won't delay a flight, but if it pops up, I watch it as soon as it comes up, if it's at all possible.
That's beautiful. I can't even find the words. Thank you so much. I'm humbled. I thank you very much.
Well, we're just appreciative of what you do. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, it means the world. Well,
one day when I come to California, I'm going to bring one of these prints and have you sign it.
That lunch is on me, pal.
Oh.
That's great.
And by the way, Mike, I start my Airbus training in January. Should be done by April. So sometime next year, I'm planning to start planning some overnights out in Cali, so we can hook up and maybe do that. Even if I have to make a special trip, I'm very much looking forward to doing our live stream from the museum.
That's you can look forward to that. That's a given. The Museum of Flying, Santa Monica. Shameless plug. We would set everything up, and we would do it right in the museum on a day that we're open, so people can actually see us.
That'd be great.
Set up in front of one of the murals or one of the model cabinets. And there's so much stuff to do, but that's a whole other separate thing.
And if when I leave, some of the models are missing, it wasn't me.
And since he's on the bus now, his new name is Cramden.
Oh, God. Steve gave me the call sign Cramden. Alice!
I love it.
Well, I'm going to move on to Greg's airplanes and automobiles. But, Mike, you're welcome to hang around if you want to. Whatever you like to do. No pressure.
I'm going to finish up a quick thing here, and then I'll hop on and watch. Guys, thank you so much. It's a joy to share this stuff, and I appreciate the questions. And model on, pal.
Model on,
Thanks.
Mike.
We really appreciate it, Mike.
Okay,
Thanks,
great
Mike.
talking to you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, that is the wonderful Mike Machat, a scholar and a gentleman and an artist of great renown. So moving on to the next YouTube channel, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with Greg's Airplanes and Automobiles. That has got Greg's Airplanes and Automobiles, which is very technically oriented, and it's just him narrating over pictures. Absolutely one of the most informative, for like aircraft technicalities and cars. It's funny, I had already been watching his website before I was reading that book about the secret horsepower race, but then I went back and rewatched some of his videos after reading the book, and a lot of things made a lot more sense. But personally, my personal favorite video of his is the one on the Corsair, which explains the bent wing, the pushback cockpit, the pushed up tail, all that stuff. And when he explains why it was made the way it was, you realize everything on that airplane was done for an aerodynamic reason, and that's why it was such a hot fighter plane. I know most of you guys are already familiar with him. Eric Cramden. I like that. Ken, you still with us? Earth to Ken, are you still there?
I am still here,
okay.
yes.
So anyway, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Greg's Airplanes and Automobiles because I know most of you guys are familiar with it if you do Cramden Consolidated. That does sound like an aircraft company. Now, there could be a little confusion. Greg's Airplane and Automobiles is, of course, and by the way, Greg is an airline pilot also. But there's also a completely unrelated channel of a guy in the UK, Greg's Models. He does a lot of vintage stuff. He was doing a old Airfix short sky van in this video. He does beautiful work, sometimes makes his own decals. But he's someone I enjoy watching. Very, very straightforward builds and everything. But the one that I imagine everybody watching this channel right now is familiar with is Plasmo. And if you haven't seen him, I think he's Eastern European, and he cranks out these beautiful builds very quickly, and he makes it look easy, which really ticks me off. But Plasmo does these fantastic builds, and I'm like, you just make it look so easy. I hate that. This is not easy. How can you do this? And he actually has a video he put out recently. He was at like a Model Palooza type thing at one of the model shows, and he's building an airplane at a table as people are watching. He's going so fast and doing such a good job. It really ticked me off. A great.
Is he related? Is he related to Louis Armstrong?
Plasma? I don't know. I have stumbled onto one called Scale Hanger 182, and I assume that has something to do with the Cessna 182. Another guy who he shows his builds in sections and does magnificent work, as you can see by the photos. Way above. These guys are all building above my level. And again, they just make it look so easy. And one of the things I like about that F-14 that he did that's on the upper left is not only the mottled gray, which looks good, but he didn't over accent it, which is something we're going to be talking about later. Then of course there's a scale model shed. I've watched a few of his videos. He does really nice work, and I think he's out of the UK. Amongst the glue troopers, of course, we've got Trey of Trey's Models, who I've seen a lot of his work in person. I saw at Modelpalooza. And Trey is nice thing about Trey is he combines a history lesson about the airplane or the car or truck or whatever, and then he does the builds over several days, and he does installments. And I've met Trey many times. He's a great guy and a great model builder. So is Trey out there? I haven't checked the comment section in a while. Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
Trey, you're here with us.
Yeah, he's on.
Okay, good. Trey and like me, Trey does a lot of stuff. He does aircraft, he does armor. He's not some of these guys specialize, but Trey does a little bit of everything. And he's does a lot of dioramas, which a lot of them have turned out really, really nice. I gave him one of my old models, the Emily, and he patched it up, made it look a lot better. Then we've got somebody, I had never heard of this one before. This is a new one on me, but somebody in the comment section said, I can't believe you didn't mention Night Shift. So I ran out real quick and watched one of his videos. Eastern European, I think. He did a really, on the far right, you see that building. He did a really good video, a lot of cool techniques on how to make buildings. And he makes these little molds that you can compress the little metal in to make the corrugated look. He had a lot of cool techniques. He's a technique guy, mostly land and armor. Beautiful work. Of course, one of the other famous ones that I imagine we're all familiar with is none other than Andy's Hobby Headquarters. Now, of course, Andy runs a business, and although he's done plenty of builds, most of his stuff is about, new kits that are coming out. And he's got that big scale Sherman with all the working bogies and everything on, which I'm desperately trying to resist buying one because I have 300 models waiting for my attention. But I got a feeling that someday, should I live long enough, I'm going to wind up with one. And Christ, it's the size of an RC. You could probably convert it with a little bit of work. Well, with a lot of work. But again,
That could be fun.
Yeah, Ken and the RCs. You say RC, Ken's ears perk up.
I saw that Hank at the Nurser show because he was there,
Oh yeah.
and it's pretty big, but boy, is it a great kit.
Yeah, everything I've heard about is great.
So's the Panzer kit and the Jeep.
Yeah, he's got the Panzer Mark III, I think, coming out, and then the Willis Jeep. I'd actually be more inclined to get the Jeep than anything else because I used to have one.
Tremendous amount of detail on the Jeep. I couldn't believe it. He opened the hood. The engine looked like it was real.
Yeah. And, you got to give Andy credit. I mean, that is, I know he hasn't popped in China and everything, but this is, Steve, you've been involved in the model making business. You know how expensive it is to get that kind of mold set up.
Oh,
That's got to be a $300,000. That's got to be $400,000 mold.
At least, and with the amount of detail in the thing and the amount of parts, it's amazing.
And I don't know if he's. I don't know. I don't think he's repopping anybody else's. I know he's having. I think Dragon's doing it for him, but I think they're his molds. I don't know of anybody else that had models at that scale.
I'm not sure if he went to the company that was making those, and saying I could make them for me and I'll get them distributed in the United States market.
That could be, but even that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, but I'm not sure whether or not he made the molds.
I think somebody had said there was someone else that was making the molds and he was contracting him, and some folks, I don't know. I don't know what the story is. Somebody out there may, but Jack pointed out he's coming out with a Kubelwagen, which I think I might have heard about that. But I enjoy watching his channel just to keep up with what's going on. He runs a hobby shop. He shows all the latest stuff and everything, and I think he's out there in Arizona, and he's just but when he goes in the back room, that's where, oh my God. Up front, it's just a shop. Lucas C. did a walkthrough of the place, and he's very well stocked. Then he goes in the back room, like, here's where the action really happens.
But those kits are phenomenal. I was just stunned when I looked at them.
It's a long way from our little 148, 132nd Revell and Lindbergh kits, huh?
Got that right.
And you can't really talk about Andy's Hobby Headquarters without talking about the Lucas C. channel, and he's a car guy. He actually did a Zoom with me, and I had a great fun talking to him. He's a big car lover, and gotta admit, I hate to say this, it almost sounds unmacho, but he's got that little Pinto up there. I wouldn't mind a Pinto. A buddy of mine used to ride around in a Pinto all the time. You know, you love what you used to have, and I know a Pinto's about as, macho as a Volkswagen, but I don't know. It's like a Vega. I know they're crap, but there are crap, and we drove around in them and we loved them.
I wouldn't mind having a model of my first car. I think that'd
Was
be
that
really
a little
cool.
Catalina?
Yeah, 67 Pontiac Catalina.
67 Pontiac Catalina Das Boot.
Two-door.
Oh, so if you got a finger in that door, you were losing it. Those were the doors that you had to pick up to close, and when you did, they went ka-shunk.
Yeah, after a while, the hinges wear out. Yeah, you did have to pick them up.
See, driving a Pinto is like playing a game.
Yeah, do I get to live to my
Yeah,
destination?
you're getting to see what are the odds before somebody tags me.
May the odds forever be in your favor. I'm sure everyone watching this knows what I'm about to say, but I'm just going to throw it out there for the one or two people who are not familiar with the Pinto. It was called the Ford Firebomb. And Steve, I'm going to let you tell that story while I take a quick refill break.
Because
Ford cough medicine.
yeah,
You guys have the con number 1 and number 2.
because when Ford designed the Pinto, they were looking for ways to cut costs, and the way was to put a gas tank behind the rear end in front of the rear bumper, because that was the cheapest place to put it. And it was also the first place that when you got rear-ended would explode. And they had tons of rear-end collisions that ended in fires and explosions, and had to pay millions of dollars in compensation to people who got injured driving Pintos, which was really kind of the thing that killed the car.
They should have just put like self-sealing tanks in them or something.
Well, I don't think they had that tech back then.
Like when you put a bullet through a fuel tank in in a fighter in an airplane. It's doesn't come out fast enough to blow up the plane. They should have done that to the Pinto.
Well, I guess they, like we just talked about. I guess they were rolling the dice and hoping it wasn't going to happen. Because, it would have been. I can't imagine it wouldn't have been obvious to anybody who was designing that car that couldn't happen.
What could possibly go wrong with this idea?
Let's put a gas tank between two pieces of metal that will likely implode on it when it gets rear-ended.
What could possibly go wrong? Nothing.
Well, anywho, so I heard a question asked to Milton Friedman. Some college kid back in the 80s or 90s was asking about, Ford's decision, to take the lawsuits over doing the repairs and callbacks. And he said, he made a comment that I couldn't disagree with Friedman, the famous economist, but it was like, okay, that doesn't sit well, but he's not wrong. The kid said, it costs like $19 a car to fix it or something like that. And he goes, Friedman goes, well, how much is a human life worth? And the kid's like, what? Well, put a value on a human life. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, you just said it cost $19. It would have been X millions of dollars. So you're the one that put a value on a human life, not me. And I was like, wow, hardcore, brother.
Well, a lot of the problem with some of these cars, which perfect example is the Vega, when they design them and then they look at them, somebody says, well, this can be a problem. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, if we fixed it, it will cost us X amount more. So multiply that by the amount of cars that they intended to produce, it comes up to a big number. So they play the numbers game that hopefully enough of them will get out there without it causing a problem. And if there is, they'll fix it under warranty.
Oh, boy.
They usually do.
Yeah.
The car industry. Making the media industry look honorable.
Yeah.
Well, the next website is Throttle Power. And Throttle Power is another car building website, does insane detail. He's got a lot of subscribers and he does a lot of traffic on his channel because he just builds a lot of great car models. And I had actually left a couple of comments there, and he commented back. So clearly he does a good job of monitoring his channel. But he goes to car shows and stuff. So if you're into model cars, Throttle Power is definitely one of the sites you're going to want to check out. And another one is Skip-O-Matics model, and you're going to love this, Steve. It's Skip-O-Matics Model Mania.
Oh, there we go.
And he does. He's a smaller channel
Hey,
at this
Mac.
point, but yeah.
Saggy Bud says humans are worth $200,000 in parts.
But I've seen some of Skip-O-Matic stuff. These are all good, fun channels. These guys really love what they're doing, and that's why I check them out. We got Right On Replicas, and what is that? A Matador? Oh my God, the thing's absolutely hideous. I mean, not the work. The work is beautiful. The car is. I don't know if it's popped up on your channel yet or not, but
Hasn't come up yet. I'm waiting.
okay, it just popped up. I don't even know what that
No,
is.
it's a Vega.
That's a Vega?
Yeah.
Man, it's been.
That does look like one.
Well, I guess
It's
okay. It's been chopped so much, but I would not have
Something
pegged that as
sat
a
on it.
Vega. Funny, I was just talking about them.
Somebody had way too much spare time on their hands.
Well, what was that Vega that they made a hot rod out of? Which the version? What do you call it? I think it starts with a C.
What, the Cosworth Vega?
Cosworth. That's it.
I just went to a car show, and the guy had a Cosworth Vega. They were black with gold striping and gold wheels. And I go over to take a look at the Cosworth headed engine in there, and there was a Buick nailhead in there. And I said,
what?
A Buick Nailhead engine.
What's a nailhead?
If you looked at the way that the Buick engines were made, the heads didn't go out to the side. They curved almost straight up. So when you had the valve covers off and you looked at the rods and the push rods, it looked like nails.
Huh.
So they called them nailheads.
Great.
Of course.
So I said to him, you took a Cosworth headed motor out of the Cosworth Vega and put in a nailhead? He goes, yeah, it runs much better.
Oh God.
I was like, oh my God.
I see Fran is here. Fran, I don't know if you were in earlier. We were talking about tanks earlier. We covered the Bovington Tank Museum and the Chieftain channel. Another good one. This is Plastic Imagination Workshop. He does a lot of cool stuff, mostly with cars. And I like these channels because some of them do kit bashes. They do all kinds of stuff. But the reason I like these channels that I've been talking about so much is the folks are knowledgeable. They review a lot of kits and they do a lot of cool work and they have a lot of fun. Because, guys, to me, building models, I mean, it's great to have a beautiful model build when you're done, but it's to have fun, to have a good time. I mean, life is short. Enjoy it. What's that old saying you taught me, Ken? Life's short, eat dessert first.
Yep. You sometimes do that.
And
Or eat it twice.
speaking of modelers that have a good time, we have Bruce over at Mystic Modeler Ships, who, despite these pictures, Bruce has done a lot of cars and airplanes lately. He's expanded. He's kind of like, one of the things I like about Bruce is he builds all kinds of stuff. He started off as a shipbuilder, but now he's done a lot of and he does beautiful work. In fact, he just did that little Atlantis Topo, the Topolino that I just boxed up mine because I had to move, but it comes with 2 engines and everything else. And he does a lot of his videos in stages, and he just shows you what experience he's had. And I've had lunch with Bruce a couple of times. He's a great guy, avid model builder, and I think you'll enjoy his channel. His videos are pretty short because they're just, here's what I did today and here's what fit, and he just gives you this real down to earth. Here's what worked, here's what didn't. Here's the problem I had. Here's what worked good.
That should be another topic.
What's that?
Length of videos.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's some videos that, they're 35, 45 minutes long, and, you're, getting through half of it. I really don't want to watch it.
My understanding is on the YouTube algorithm prefers the 7 to 8 minute video. Long enough to keep people's attention for a while, not so long. Because you click on a video that's an hour long, you're making an investment. Yeah. I know a lot of videos I've looked at that were interesting subject matter, but they were an hour and 10 minutes long. I'm like, yeah, I really don't have that much time.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
And moving, and Ken, we're getting into your territory, moving towards slot cars. ML Tyler.
Who? Who did you say?
You.
Me.
You played with slot cars.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Ken, you're more RC guy. I guess we don't really have a strong slot car guy with us tonight, do we? Well, Steve, are you into slots?
I used to have them. I mean, I have some sets, here in the house.
Well, this.
But, I mean, I gave up my, cars that you would go to the track with because those tracks kind of went away.
Yeah. Well, ML Tyler does model cars, and he does a lot of slot car stuff. And I stumbled onto his channel one day, and I was like, this guy, he shows a lot of cool techniques. And then we got Mark from Montana, who couldn't be with us tonight. He's out on the road. Mark does a lot more than cars. He's big into slot cars in a huge way. Him and Fast Sports, who we're going to get to, actually going to be next. But Mark and John over at Fast Cars, they chat a lot. I actually missed the Zoom session I was supposed to have with them because I think I forgot. I forget. Oh, I feel so guilty. Anyway, but he also, you see the pilot figure. Mark does a lot of World War I aircraft. And he does some beautiful work, and he does pilot figures and everything else. Just real. He kind of. I think he's always been in slots. He kind of refound model aircraft recently, but he's a good channel, especially if you're into slot cars, but also if you're into World War I model aircraft, because he really especially the figures and everything he does. And he got a lot of the figures, I think, from. It was Accurate Miniatures, and he just, as you can see in his little logo picture, he does beautiful work. And that brings us to John over at Fast Sports up in Canada, I believe he's north of Toronto. John's with us right now, at least he was earlier. But anyway,
Before we go to John, I just want to bring up something I thought was kind of interesting. Now you talk about a niche hobby. Lance was saying Marty's Matchbox in Australia just got back on YouTube.
Okay.
After a major move and being offline nearly a year. Here's the part I'm interested in. He restores old die-cast Matchbox vehicles.
I have seen some of his stuff, if it's the one I'm thinking of. Yes.
Holy cow.
And
he does about a 45-minute video, and he takes it from, here's the car, and he buys a lot of them online, and some people, send them to him. And he goes through the whole process of taking it apart, stripping it, repairing it, polishing the windows, repainting it, and they look great when they're done with. He's done with them.
Wow,
and he does all
mind-blowing
different sizes. He does not only just Matchbox cars, but he'll do king-size Matchbox cars too, which are the larger ones. And I don't know where he gets the decals and some of the parts from, but he somehow has a way to get the original repro decals for each one of these things.
Impressive.
Wow.
That's a serious commitment.
Yeah.
Now,
he does great work.
Speaking of great work, by the way,
my mind.
Speaking of great work, John's daughter makes resin parts for, I think it's for slot car stuff, and she has her own little business on the side doing that. And John does a lot of resin work. He's actually made a lot of car bodies and everything, and a lot of his videos are about how to make resin bodies and how to detail them, how to do the electronics. If you're into slot cars, I think Fast Sports and Mark from Montana are really and ML Tyler, the three we just covered. Those are three channels that you definitely are going to want to check out. And the thing I like about John is I think he has a background in video production, so it's very very slick productions, but also it's very relaxing. John, being just a very nice Canadian gentleman, he just has a very mild, friendly manner about him. It's just, if you've had a stressful day, just go watch one of his videos on building a model car or something, and it's just very friendly and very kind of. And John, I hope you appreciate this, but sort of a very Mr. Rogers sort of approach to things. It makes it very relaxing. That's a good thing, by the way.
Yeah, Yes.
And I've Zoomed with John many times. He's a great guy, exceptionally knowledgeable. And you know what I'd like to do? I would love to get like Steve and John in a room and start popping car questions at them like Trivial Pursuit, because they're both huge car guys. You know?
It's just like Jeopardy.
Yeah, there you go. What was the 1953 Ford bumper number?
Yeah. You just have to get them started. You just sit back and let them watch.
Oh, there you go.
At it, you know?
But did you know? Yes, but did you know? Now, this other one, these are the only two videos that have ever been put up by Phil Separano. And Phil is...
Fair enough.
And Phil, if you are an Aurora fan or an old model fan, you have got to watch these two videos. Phil has probably got the best collection of vintage Aurora models. He was a personal friend of Andy Anchus. Some of the stuff he got from Andy that was stuff that Aurora never put into production. I don't want to go. He's actually gone so far as to have his own molds made, which I think Atlantis is using one of them now. But incredible guy. Definitely hardcore with the collection. I mean, to watch those videos, I know it's an hour and 39 minutes and 38 minutes. If you're an old model guy, especially if you're a Aurora fan, you will like, where did he get that? Where did he get that? Where did you find that? I still don't know where he got the boxes for the Batcopter because it never went into production.
I told Jim, I sent the link to his video to Jim Keeler.
Uh-huh.
Keeler was stunned.
Oh, I'll bet he was. You know, Andy had a massive collection, which is finally making its way online as part of the estate, and people are picking it off. And I'm glad it's finding good homes. And I understand that Andy's house was full of all kinds of. Not only that, but you know, Andy was also an artist, and he'd done a lot of, a lot of stuff for Japanese, and he had a lot of obscure stuff in America, comic books and everything, as well as models. But Phil, all this stuff is all models, and it's the stuff that, I mean, I wouldn't call it a barn find because, I mean, this is his collection, but my God, it's amazing. He has some of the stuff he has the only ones in the world.
Yeah, he's got some toys in there too that are just ridiculously rare, and he's got, as you see in the right picture where the iced tea is. He's got the largest collection I've ever seen of cardboard counter store displays.
Yeah, the store displays, and they're all intact. They're all original.
Yeah, I mean, and everything he has is mint. It's not like it was shop-worn goods or
right.
Right.
It's all in good shape.
It's all like brand new.
I would, if there was any chance of financial viability, I would tell him, Phil, you need to open a kit model museum.
Yeah.
Because that's what his garage and his basement are. I mean, this is our history, and God bless him, he's been a really good steward of it.
Well, if you watch the video, the hour and 39-minute one, and you see in the bottom right corner, you have like two different Godzillas in two different colors. Because one was a test shot in the purple.
That's right. You can see it.
In every one of most of these kits, he's got them in 10, 12 different colors. Because they were test shots, and he's got them all. And you're like, wow.
I'm pretty sure he had his operative inside Aurora.
I've met him, and I've asked him, where did you get all of this stuff? And he says, well, met people, I talked to people. He never gives you a direct answer.
No, I chatted with him a couple of times on the phone, and he's a great guy, but he is definitely very quiet. He plays it close to the vest, and I don't blame him. I mean,
why give your sources up?
Well, not only that, I mean, Aurora's been gone a long time, but you're getting to he's got stuff that I don't think would raise any eyebrows today, but let's be honest, Toho has relaunched the Godzilla franchise and everything, and King Kong franchise. And I hate to say this like this, but you just never know when you're going to get a C&D from a law firm. A cease and desist.
Well, his stuff is it's fantastic is the only word that can describe it, because when you watch the video, it's not only the number of things he has, it's the variety of things he has.
If it was in an Aurora catalog, he probably has one.
Yeah, and then he's got stuff from Monogram, he's got stuff from Aurora, he's got toys from Ideal. He's all over the collecting spectrum with the stuff he has, but it's all amazing.
It truly, truly is. I just.
Hey, Max. Who's that guy that had the glow in the dark? I think Enterprise Star Trek models.
Okay, I got a comment section when I did the AMT video, and it's buried down in the comments. I forget who it was because it's been so long, but apparently when sales are starting to slack off, they were looking for something to try to reinvigorate the product line, and somebody got the bright idea. Well, let's take our it was at AMT, and he said, let's take our Starship mold, our USS Enterprise mold, and shoot it in glow in the dark and see if that'll sell. And they did they did a handful of test shots. They looked at it and said, yeah, this isn't going anywhere, and they chucked him. He literally went dumpster diving and got him out, or went in the trash and got him out and smuggled him off to his house. And he still has them to this day. And I offered him, I think I said, well, I'll give you $300. And he was like, nice try, missing a zero. He knows what he has. I mean, one off. Well, Andy had a pink Sikorsky helicopter. Because when they did the test shots, they had been making something for some girl's product, and they had pink pellets in there, and they're like, screw it, we just want to do some test shots. Well, normally those things get ground up. They just throw them in the bin, and they get reground and shot back in. Andy was like, screw that. He took it home. 20 cents worth of styrene, but he's got the world's only pink Sikorsky model, or had, when you work at the factory, things are different. And Phil Separano has done a great job of preserving our modeling history. And I can't say thanks to him enough for that, to the point of cutting a couple of his own molds. And that is not a happy experience, and it ain't cheap. And I know for a fact that he had every bit of headache getting those molds made that everyone else who's ever made molds does. And the mold, and I think Steve, you even pointed this out. The mold bank is the company.
Yeah, it is.
And
that's
mold,
where the money is.
That's where the money goes, and that's a big thing to get done.
It's the molds and then the packaging.
Yeah.
The artwork for the packaging.
Yeah. And
I mean, if you noticed that Atlantis, who had many of the old Revell kits, if you notice, a lot of them have different packaging than they had when they were initially released.
Yeah.
And Atlantis has the packaging, but Revell sued them to block them from using it.
Yeah, I heard about that. Man, what were they thinking? I mean, man, you're interfering with your own product line.
And so they had to go to outside artists and have the packaging redone.
And contrary to what a lot of people think...
Because it would have wound up in court forever, and you would have spent $1 jillion to
sell a few thousand models.
And it was cheaper just to hire people to do new box art.
And the sad part is that, unlike Tamiya or these others, Atlantis is not a huge company. They don't have deep pockets. Hiring an artist to do artwork for them or whatever, that's not cheap.
But it's cheaper than paying the lawyer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And kind of in the opposite direction of Aurora and the mass-produced companies, another video that has a lot of model building I love is the Pierce Films Productions, A Sense of Scale. This is the Hollywood model builders. These are the guys in Hollywood that make... And, it's shocking when you learn how much some of these Hollywood photo models... like the Enterprise was $350,000 to make, the one for the movie. The Titanic was in the hundreds of thousands. In fact, one of them they're talking about when they're making Titanic, that was a 44-foot long model ship, and they made some smaller ones. And they were talking about how it got so expensive they started laying off modelers. Over 100,000 rivets hand glued on that thing, drilled in and then glued in place. That was a hell of a model.
Talk about over detail.
Well, the problem was they realized that the camera would pick it up, and it did. So they were kind of forced to do it. I mean, if they wanted the authentic look. But I really love that because I've always had a fascination with Hollywood model making. And they make these things out of scratch, usually from plans. Sometimes they use kits, but that's only when they need a lot of something shot at a distance. Just real quick, I'm throwing up, this is my wife's YouTube channel. She does the dolls. She made every one of these, hand painted the faces, the hair, the works, had the costumes, made a ton of work. And I call it kit model adjacent. And then, of course...
You should have her touch you up before you go on and do a live stream.
Yeah. Dude, there ain't enough makeup in the world to make this face for radio look pretty. And then there's this schmuck that has his own channel, and I think he's a wannabe decent model builder who just tries to grab some stolen valor by making videos. He can't make models, so he makes videos about models. But
he puts good packaging up.
Oh yeah, beautiful artwork. And of course, there are other channels. I didn't get around to the HPI guy who I watch sometimes. I realize I'm leaving some of them off, but a lot of these other websites do some interesting reviews.
You can't put a guy up who paints with Krylon.
Hey, he makes it work. It looks good on his models.
Don't know how. Everybody I know who watches that channel is the same discussion. How the hell
How
do
you
you
do that with
that?
Krylon?
Hey, Mac, maybe you could get Monica to fix your hair like you were when you were 17.
You mean my bountiful, beautiful bouffant? The pompadour forever, baby. Pompadour forevermore. Yeah.
One thing about the HPI guy, he puts a lot of stuff out in a short period of time.
Well, when you're splattering with Krylon, it dries in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But hey, he maybe it's the way he photographs them and lights them, but it makes it work.
Yep.
Hey, remember, there's no wrong way to build a model. If it works, it works. My art teacher used to tell me there's no cheating in art. The only way you can cheat in art is to take credit for somebody else's work.
Huh?
Well, one other thing I thought we would talk about tonight is over-detailed models. And I don't mean like you put too much detail in the model, more that you... now, the particular picture I'm throwing up here is, I believe this was made by a Canadian. This is just Olympic gold medal level work on this helicopter engine and rotor mast. I mean,
wow.
It's just insane. This guy needs to be putting his stuff in museums. But there is, and he was, by the way, he was fairly subtle on the seam lines. But this is not what I mean by over detailed. This is magnificently detailed.
This is a model?
That is, yeah. I know, that was kind of my reaction. I got that off of Facebook. I think it was off
level of skill. That's what this is.
I think it was off a Canadian website. It's insane. But you will notice that he was careful to keep all the black accent for the seam lines inside the seams. Okay, which is okay. Yeah. That makes right. But I was noticing, and this is something that I wanted to talk about. I'm going on a crusade here. A lot of people over accent, especially on aircraft, they over accent rivet lines and seam lines. Now, the Wildcat, that is in the top part of this slide that I put together, it'll come up to you guys in just a second. Okay, the one on top is a model. The one on bottom is an airplane in a museum. Well, you can see the seam lines on the real airplane, but you will notice that they are. And this is a beautiful model the guy did, so I don't want to sound like I'm, he did this wrong. It's not like that, but the panel accent lines are simply too loud. And I know they get a little grit and grime, but and I get it. You make this model, you want the panel lines to pop a little bit, but the simple fact is, and we're going to look at several sets of photographs, they're just not that bold on the working airplane. Okay. They're overstated. And
I hope you got permission from these guys to use their pictures before you.
What pictures, Ken?
Decided to pick on them.
I have no idea what you're talking about. because I was never here and this never happened. The next photograph you're going to see, this is the best photograph on the bottom in black and white of a Japanese Aichi D3A Val dive bomber that I could find. And, but it was the highest resolution. Now, I wanted to compare two builds. Now, the little one on the stand is a die cast. It comes that way, and the markings, the panel lines are way, way overstated. The model on,
kit.
yeah, well, maybe it's, well, okay, maybe it's a paper kit. I thought it said die cast, but I was working fast.
No, it could be. It just, the colors, it just looks like it's printed.
They do have that look. Now, the model on the left and the top is a beautiful build, but it's, again, the panel line, and I can understand a little bit. See, what I do is I've been using the highlighter a lot, that Tamiya panel line, but I'm realizing that it's just too loud. When I did my F102 and my F106, I read a couple of articles on how to do them. I used a very sharp number 2 pencil to make the panel lines. They were much more subdued. If you look at the build on the right, there are panel lines, but they're far more subdued. And they look a lot more like the photograph. Now, I realize that's a black and white photo, and I have no idea how good the original resolution was. But all the pictures I could find of these Japanese IJN gray-green valves, none of them were as stated as these models are. And
Trey ZX brings up an interesting point. He says judges at contests seem to like over-exaggerated panel lines.
He's exactly right. They do, because it shows this craftsmanship. But it depends on the judge. Here's the photo I really wanted to show to make my point. Here are 4 good high-resolution photographs of a Mustang, as you see from on top, and of course on the left is a kit model. And you will notice the panel lines, especially around the gun trays, are extremely loudly stated. Look at all 4 of those airplanes, and these are wartime photos. These are not new museum pieces. You can't see a single panel line other than the discoloration of the aluminum. But you can hardly see, except for a few places around the engine, any panel lines, especially around the gun trays. And again, I understand they're deliberately overstated so that they pop, but and what I'm talking about here is, if you want to win awards, you probably have to do that, because it's just, oh, look at the beautiful work that he did. But if you're someone that's going just for detail accuracy, I wouldn't use anything more than a pencil, because, and I know a lot of the people watching this have backgrounds in aviation. Aircraft panels fit pretty freaking tight. They have to.
Yes.
Especially on military aircraft. You step any distance away from an F-15 or an F-16, you really can't see the panel lines very well. And that's because everything fits like a glove. It has to. And don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not being critical in the sense of, they did this wrong. I'm just saying that, look, I'm around airplanes all day, including some greasy, beat-up ones. I get very far away from the airplane. It just doesn't pop like that. That was the point I wanted to make. Even on more subtle ones like the Sea Knight, which is Swedish, there's a helicopter on the right, there's a model on the left. The panel lines just aren't that pronounced. Now, some aircraft that have overlapping, like some of the planes made in the 30s, like from Vultee, that actually had overlapping aluminum, they didn't butt join them. Yeah, those panel lines will show. But
Andy brought up a good point. He says, so are you saying not to highlight panel lines at all?
No, I'm saying be more subdued about it. Like I say, I use a very sharp number 2 pencil, and when I get very far from the model, I can't see them. I get it. It disappears, but you look close, and it's very subtle. Now, this is on jets and stuff. I will use panel lines on something like a flap or an aileron that actually has a gap. Okay, that's where the stuff really shows, is on the control surfaces, because the elevator to the stabilizer, rudder to the fin, flap and aileron to the wing, those are large, pronounced gaps, especially if the flaps are down. But the actual
72, Jeff 72 brings up an interesting point. He says, fits like a glove unless it's Soviet built.
This is true. Definitely panel lines on a Soviet airplane would probably be, of course, they tend to cover them with paint, but fair to say. Fair to say. But and the thing is that this is another point I wanted to make about this, though. This gets to the point that having the panel lines like on this helicopter does make it look good. It makes it look better. I like that I can see them because it gives it some character. But you look at the actual helicopter on the right, and I'm like, well, I can't. I mean, you can see them around the door, maybe the emergency exit, but I don't see the actual panel line. So if you don't put panel lines, if you don't accent the panel lines, the model can actually look a little bland. But then you look at the helicopter to the right, that's kind of how it looks. I mean, it's just, you got to decide that for yourself. There's no wrong way. It's your model. You make what makes you happy. But I just wanted to point that out, that I've seen a lot of models that are, for lack of a better phrase, over detailed. You're putting in detail that the eye shouldn't be able to see because on the actual aircraft the component is so small it goes unnoticed. It's all about what you want your model to look like. Again, not a wrong or a right here. Just bringing up the point that we tend to make a big deal out of these popping panel lines that if you went out and looked at an airplane on the ramp, you wouldn't see. But it's your model. You make it to look, you make it to represent what you want it to represent. Again, I want to be very clear. I am not being critical here. I'm just pointing this out.
Brian Tate says, I think it's more of forcing a shadow to show detail.
That is a pretty good assessment. I would agree with that. And but you notice that a lot of times the shadows don't show, and of course that gets into lighting and everything else. It gets tricky. It gets tricky. By the way, one other thing real quick is you guys know I sent some of the models out to folks, and I've been getting some pictures back on. Guys are rebuilding them, and then some of them got them hanging up in their rooms and stuff. That was kit bashed out of a Stearman, but it didn't do so well in transit. It was broken when I put it in the box, but I was like, yeah.
But I'm fixing your model.
The B-17 down there in the shed was one that I had sent to someone. But there's the Judy that I did.
What did you do? Paint it with dirt?
Yes, I can. That's what I do. I paint with dirt. It's a great cost saving measure, but I just want to say thanks, guys. I'm glad you're getting a little kick out of that.
There's a Russian forward swept wing fighter. I was thinking about building a 3D flying model out of that.
Okay, because that'll be so stable.
And he'll ask you to fly it.
Oh no!
Probably the reason they only made one of them.
Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about tonight that I think you guys might find a little interesting. Commuter airliners. Why do I want to talk about commuter airliners? Is it perhaps because I used to fly
one, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. But more than that, I want you to look at some of these random commuter airliner photos I got. Most of these airlines you've probably never even heard of. Now, because I love the sound of my own voice so much, my buttery smooth radio voice and radio face, I need to explain something real quick, because this is starting to become a hotbed issue. And I hope you guys will allow me to talk about the airline industry and what's going on right now for just a second to add a little flourish. Right now, you guys may have heard people talk about, there's a pilot shortage. And that's not wrong. I, as a working airline pilot, am every week getting stuff in the mail from a variety of airlines, usually the regionals or like Republic and these others. We're holding a pilot. We'd love you to come interview with us. And thanks, got a job. And Ken, you remember me when I was screaming to get into the airlines. I would have killed for that 30, 25 years ago. Oh my God, Ken, was it 30 years ago? It was.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about something happier. Yeah, wah. So anyway, times change. When I was a kid, when most of us were kids, when most of the people on air, the 131 people watching right now, when most of us were kids, if somebody had walked into your high school class and said, "Who wants to be an airline pilot?" you'd have had a line around the gymnasium. Now you'd be lucky if maybe 2 walk up. What happened to the world while I was asleep? Anyway.
Well, that's because they play video games.
Don't even get me started. This is what happens when you kids play video games instead of growing up building models like they're supposed to. Anywho. But I digress. So back in the day, from post-World War II up to the 80s, you had what were called commuter airliners, which these are pictures of. Usually 6 to 15 passenger, maybe 19 passenger, propeller driven piston engine, and later on smaller turboprops. A lot of these companies operated in the U.S. under FAR Part 135, charter regulations, not airline regulations. So it was a much lower bar.
You were involved with one of those.
What?
You were involved with one of those with Shapiro.
Let's just don't go down that dark rabbit hole.
This is how I know so much about them.
Thank you, Ken, for ripping out a chunk of my heart.
Oh, please.
Anyway, the sad story lasts a long time.
Too soon?
Lots of interesting stories. Someday you ought to tell them.
Someday we'll. I've only had one cocktail. I'm going to need about 3 more to tell that story. But we tried. Hey, we tried. We tried to start an airline, and which falls in the category of things a sane person should not do. Anyway, but
you end up with a small fortune.
But you got to, yeah. How do you, everybody knows this joke? How you start with a big one? How do you earn a small fortune in aviation? Start with a big one. And man, truer words were never spoken. So anyway, but the thing is that people who started these airlines, there were, I threw some route maps up here so you can see how small some of the route structures were. But back in the day, as all the cool kids like to say, these airlines all had a very independent identity. Shawnee, Cape Air. By the way, Cape Air's still around. Allegheny, Cumberland, Air Illinois, Air Midwest. These were actually genuinely independent little airlines. Now, a lot, and there were, up to the 80s, there were still DC-3s flying this stuff. PBA had them through the 80s. In fact, they had the highest time airframe in history, like 601 Papa Bravo or something, which had like 108,000 hours on the airframe. Probably been through 200 engines.
Holy cow.
That's a DC-3. They never wear out. The only way to bring down a DC-3 is gunfire. Anyway, but they flew usually less than 1 hour legs. 200-mile ring around most, they often had an interline or an agreement with a major airline, but they did, some of them did Essential Air Service, EAS, but they were very colorful. I have a book called Sunshine Skies, which gets into the ones, there were just in the Southeast alone, there were about 100 different little commuter airlines. They stayed commuter airlines for the longest time, and they were they didn't pay diddly. I mean, but they were an apprenticeship for a lot of pilots. Well, and by the way, Europe and Asia, they all had the same thing going. This, by being an American, I just know it from the U.S. Canada had quite a few of them. And a lot of them... What?
Buffalo. I think they're still flying, aren't they?
No, they got shut down.
No.
And they sold off everything.
But, TW Express, Brit Air, a lot of them, sometimes the name stayed. Now, like Allegheny Commuter was probably actually Reading Air Service, doing business as Allegheny Commuter. So what happens in the 80s is a lot of them are flying turboprops by this point, but some of them, the airlines didn't like pistons. The turboprops are more reliable, they're faster. So in the 70s, there was a transition. These little commuters transitioned over to turboprops, most of them. And Cumberland was flying Navajos, and that Aztec right there is a Cumberland airplane. Anyway, so what happens, though, is they get a turboprops, they're still commuters. But through the 80s, the major airlines, begin this process of making their commuters become contractors that have to paint their airplanes like the major airline. That Allegheny commuter in the bottom right, actually those are both Allegheny, the Beech 99 and the de Havilland, which is a piston engine, by the way, are Allegheny commuter. They were painted up to do service in the same colors as Allegheny Airlines, which later turned into U.S. Air and then U.S. Airways, and now is gobbled up by American, which was actually America West. God, this stuff gets confusing. Anyway.
Ian says Buffalo is still flying.
Buffalo who?
I assume the people in Canada.
Oh, you're talking about up in Canada. I thought you meant in the Buffalo, New York.
No, they shut down.
You sure?
Okay, I read an article. Hold on. If you're talking about the one from like Ice Pilots.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My understanding, their C-46 got grounded. A couple of their planes got grounded. I think they're still running they did have some serious problems with the Aviation Transport Authority. I think they may still have some Caravans flying, but I think the World War II birds have been grounded.
Ian said they have the last scheduled DC-3 service in the world.
So they still got the Goonie bird flying. Okay. Then they still, but it might have been grounded for a while. They probably found the parts and got it running. But they are under a lot of scrutiny. I do know that they've had quite a few problems with the feds up there.
The old man died.
Oh, I think that was the beginning of the end. Yeah, I think that was the big problem because he was holding that. He was the one that I think he was what was holding that operation together.
And the kid was dealing in old planes, so he sold off most of the planes they had.
Okay. Well, as much as we love those old birds, it's hard to find parts. It's hard to find mechanics now to work on a radial engine now. Well, anyway. So once turboprops became the norm, especially like that Swearingen when they started getting the pressurized turboprops, the regional airlines had always been a place where pilots got their time before they went to the majors. But what happens is in the 80s, Canadair now the regional airlines were faster and they were pressurized, so they could start reaching out farther. Now, this started causing problems with the mainline unions because all of a sudden you've got this 30-seat turboprop that can go 220 knots. You know, you can do more than 100 miles. Let's put 300-mile legs on this thing. It costs nothing to operate. We pay the crew squat. All of a sudden, Eastern's like, hey, what do you think you're doing having Eastern Metro fly our routes? That kind of thing. And you start getting these scope clauses and issues with the unions. Well, then the regional jet comes out. Now, this is where things really start getting blurred. When I went to fly for Mesa, I was flying a Beech 1900, and my first couple of gigs, I flew from Presque, Maine, down into Boston, Hartford, a couple other places, but that was it. Tight little route that fed Boston, and our whole job was just to put butts in seats for the mainline airline. That was we were basically effectively a charter. Come down to Florida. I never left the state of Florida. Of course, Florida's a big state, but I'm going, Panama City, Tampa, back to Panama City, Orlando, maybe going down to West Palm. We had flights. We had 1900s that wired the state of Florida. You could jump in a plane in Pensacola, go down, make a couple of pit stops on your way to Jacksonville, go through, go to West Palm. Because we only had to put about 5 people on the airplane to make any money. Well, Piedmont Airlines, which was now U.S. Air, gets a little peeved because they used to fly a couple interstate jet routes, and now with us doing it for slave wages, all of a sudden they lose those routes. And then the regional jets come in, and this changed everything. One of my routes in a quote-unquote regional jet was Montreal, Canada to Charlotte to Mobile, Alabama. I'm sorry, when did the entire United States and a chunk of Canada become a region? They had RJs going nonstop from Charlotte to Fayetteville, North Carolina, all up in the Northeast, all down in Florida. And, of course, the mainline pipe. So now all of a sudden, we're no longer...
in California sometimes.
Oh, but hold on. Now all of a sudden, we're no longer commuter airlines. Now we're regional airlines.
Regional airlines.
Well, we had some routes you had routes that take you across the country. So now we're national airlines, but the regional name is the one that stuck. But the commuter name implied these little routes like you see here in the picture, one city over. City hoppers, that kind of stuff, like KLM City Hopper. But now all of a sudden we're flying across 5 states. So now we're regional airlines, and the word region, well, that was just whatever you wanted it to be. And they were all painted just like U.S. Air aircraft, except they would have the word express or connection or feeder on it. You know, American Eagle, U.S. Air Express, United Connection. And a lot of people didn't realize they're getting on a jet, and sometimes they're even getting on a jet bridge, and they don't realize that that's not a U.S. Air crew. That's a Mesa Airlines crew. And so, but now the airplanes looked homogeneous. They all had the same corporate livery on them. By the way, here's a piece of quick trivia for you. American Airlines owns several of its regional airlines, like Executive and Flagship. And the way you could tell if you knew what you were looking at, the way you could tell if you were getting on a contract carrier or a wholly owned regional carrier was the tail. The American, they had that eagle with the AA on the tail. If 1A was blue and 1A was red, it was a wholly owned subsidiary and part of American Airlines, even though it was a separate airline within an airline. But if the whole logo on the tail was blue, it was a contract carrier. And, but anyway, so then the regionals started getting these 70 and 90 seaters. And now the Embraer 170s and 175s, which are built to a scope clause. And my God, you can buy a ticket across the United States on a major airline and never actually touch a major airline airplane. You know, you can go out of Miami on American, and it's actually one of their, in regionals, go to Dallas and connect to another regional and go to California and never actually be on a major American Airlines airplane. When I was doing
that also caused some problems with the pilots too.
Because, there's all kinds
of Mesa. They weren't transitioning like they were supposed to. They were staying at those airlines.
Well, a lot of those guys who were staying at those airlines because no one would hire them, because once you've been at a regional airline for 20 odd years, people kind of wonder what's this guy's problem. No, seriously, they're like, and now the Mesa guys are making 6 figures, so they don't want to go be a $50,000 a year first officer, start all over again. A lot of these guys are in their 50s now. But it gets complicated. But the back in the day, and now of course you have your exceptions like Cape Air, like on the left there, Cape Air. They're still flying those 402s out of Boston and Key West today, and their pilots make 6 figures flying a 402. That's why they don't lose pilots like a lot of airlines do. But the thing is the regional airliners are very poorly represented in kit models, or I should say the commuter airlines. And there are a few specialty companies that knock some of them out and will sell you different. They're just now starting to make them because everybody's looking for different models to make. But, good luck finding an Air Illinois, 748. Who made that thing? Not Avro, not de Havilland. Hawker Siddeley. The airplane on the top on the left there is an Air Illinois Hawker Siddeley 748. Good luck finding that kit. And there is a company that makes the Beech 90. There's very slim pickings on regional airlines. And the thing is, you look at some of the old regional airlines, they had some really colorful schemes. Go look up Shawnee Airlines, their flaming pink Martin 404. That makes some interesting stuff to build. I'm lumberjacking, that's okay. But now, of course, you have they're not commuters anymore. They're regional airlines. And the commuters all but gone. You hardly, except for the Q400, except for the de Havilland Q400, with groups like Porter, you hardly ever even see a turboprop anymore that's not hauling boxes. And but it's a very overlooked opportunity. I don't know how popular the kits would be, but it's a very underrepresented opportunity. So they went from commuters to regionals, from regionals to nationals, and now some of them have gotten big enough they're actually competitors for the majors. And they call their
some guns off of them. Nope, they'll sell.
Kens, if you put guns on the railroad, you'd have dogfights. But anyway, I just thought that was an interesting subject because there's so few models of regional or commuter airlines, and they're such a colorful group. If you could find a Model Aztec and paint it up in Cumberland Airline colors, or put your DC-3 in Shawnee Airline colors, just something different. Or Buffalo. Actually, I think someone makes Buffalo decals. I don't think they include the kit, but anyway. So, well, that was what I had to cover tonight. Now, I really want to thank Mike Machat for joining us. I didn't mean to, ambush him like that, but thank God he picked up the phone because he really made the live stream. That was great. So, guys, what else do we? Who's got something else? Because I just officially ran out of ammo.
Well, I guess because there's such a appears to be such a limited market for airliners. I'm not pronouncing this right. Lemur crazy. I don't know. Airlines are covered by pre-built, pre-painted models.
They are. There you can get handmade ones. Pac-Man and Atlantic and a bunch of other companies make them. They're not cheap, but they do make them. And Dayron, yeah, the airplane shop. They changed hands recently, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They got sold to a Canadian company.
Yeah. Hope that works out.
I was with the owner at the nurses show, and we had dinner a couple of nights, and he was lamenting how he's done. I said to him, "What are you worried about? You cashed out."
Does anyone make Allegheny Key for de Havilland Airfix de Havilland? I doubt it, but that's something you'd have to look for. There are some specialty companies, but you might have to make your own. Get Corel Draw or something, and make your own decals. And making decals on a computer, there's several videos out there about doing it. And I've done it before. Helps if you start with a scan, but that's an art form in its own right. Fran brings up.
I want to remind everyone of the upcoming.
Yeah, okay, Fran, that's a good idea. Let me open this up here real quick. That's the wrong program. Hold on. Let me go here.
Tracy X says, and now for something completely different.
That's my superpower. Let me just do a print screen. And give me just a second. Paste. Okay.
Lego's asking if there's a 148 Bell P59 Aerocomet kit.
Is there one? Is that what he's asking?
Don't know if there's one of 48.
I'm not familiar with it if there is.
Mm.
Okay, save that. Let me put the viewers build up. Okay. That wasn't what I wanted. Hold on just a second. Bill's. Oh, wow.
See that?
Okay.
John Ashley Smith said he thinks Hobbycraft Canada did one back in the 90s.
And good luck finding it.
Yeah, Hobbycraft. Those things are like Aurora. They got people that collect them, so. All right.
Shaggy Bud says, let's talk about how trains are way overpriced in 2022.
They've been way overpriced for 22 years.
Yeah, well, the prices in the last few months have taken quite a turn up.
Okay. There is the viewers build timeline.
Center.
Okay, hold on. There it goes. Great. Now I can drink out of the bottle while no one can see me.
There we go.
Let's see. I need to get. I've got a bunch of space. I have really got to get started on that. The move has kind of monkey wrenched everything, but I think I can get it done on time, and it'll be close to that. That's why I'm using words like probably and around. So do a screen grab, guys, and you've got it. And I need to start attaching a copy of this with every video, just so it's in the comments section. And
this is like the train schedule for the Long Island Railroad, on or about.
You never had it so good. By the way, one thing it was just totally irrelevant, doesn't mean anything. One thing I didn't bring up is all you, Mike, and all three of you guys, when Mike was on board, you're all from New York. I didn't realize that until I was chatting with Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
can I put my my P38 in for the build on May?
absolutely, Ken. I expect you to.
Oh, okay.
It counts.
That was fine.
Ken has been making. If you saw the last live stream, he's made considerable progress on that 3D printed radio controlled P38 that Bruce over at Mystic Modular Ships gave me. I gave it to Ken because he knows he's done 3D RC builds before, and that's its own science.
It is.
When is the glue bomb build, Craig? Pretty much any time I put one together.
What's the possible group build ideas on the bottom? It's kind of cut off.
Building what's on the box art,
Okay.
and a seaplane build.
Ooh.
And another one, let's see, no, I've already got the Hollywood movie scene studio build up there in front or behind the camera. So that's either build a model of something from a scene in a movie, or you can build a model and make it like a movie set with cameras and operators and everything. And which is great because you can go off scale because it's a movie. So, you know, do whatever you want. You know, it's a movie. Have fun with it. The whole idea of all these builds is to have a good time. That's what I want you guys to do. Oh shoot, I got to get crack on that kit bash also. I've already got it worked out in my head. You know what I mean?
You gotta cut this move. You gotta cut this move thing out. That's taking too much time.
Yeah. Well, listen. Speaking of the move, I have got to give a shout out to my wife who has really taken the lead on this thing. While I was in training, I was completely focused on that. She's got, and I was on a 5-day trip before I was gone for 8 days. She got so much accomplished by herself. So, baby, love you. It's incredible the work she's gotten accomplished.
One of these trips, you're going to find out that she moved everything in the house and changed the locks on the new house.
I'm not going to worry about it till the cat doesn't recognize me.
It kind of reminds me of the old jokes. When I was 11, my parents moved, but I found them again.
Who was the sloth in Ice Age? You know, they tried to lose me. You know, tied me to a tree. You know, covered their scent.
Sounds like a Rodney Dangerfield joke.
Basically, it was. Well, guys, we're down to our last couple of minutes. I want to thank everybody. Mrs. Max is the glue. Fair enough. I want to thank everybody for coming out to join us. Steve, Ken, I want to thank you guys for giving me some of your time. Huge shout out to Mike Machat for picking up the phone and giving us some of his valuable time. And
Mike's the best.
He is.
Oh, yeah.
Truly is. You guys got anything?
You know what we ought to try to do?
What?
We got to try to get Phil on this one night.
I'll let you handle that. You're the only one that's ever. I mean, I've talked to him on the phone. You're the only one that's ever actually met him. If he'd be interested in doing that, I've heard some of his stories. I know he likes to play things close to the vest. He may not want the exposure, but if he wants to, he'd certainly be welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit him up and see what he says.
All right. And guys, again, if you're an Aurora fan, you've got to go watch that video Phil put out of his collection. I watched it it's an hour and a half long, and I've sat through the whole thing 2.5 times. And I was like, I can't believe you got this stuff. And you're going to stop the thing and go, is that what I think it is? I didn't even know that existed.
I was watching it one night, and my wife came in, and she's standing there looking at the TV as she's panning this collection. And I said to her, "You can't ever say anything to me about what I have."
Well, guys, I am going to turn on the loop, the intro, so that you can chat amongst yourselves for a few minutes. But I am going to sign off on this end on behalf of myself and Ken and Steve. I want to thank everybody coming out. I hope you had a good time. Ken, Steve, any last parting shots?
Good night, troopers. And remember to set your clocks back.
Tomorrow night, the clocks go back. Ken?
Mine do them automatically.
Ooh. Mr. Tech.
Well, Ken, some of us have a thing with a wristwatch, and it has what's called hands on it, and we have to, get back there and crank the little machine with the little man inside it,
And it goes cuckoo, cuckoo.
Well, guys, I'm going to let you run.
Okay.
I appreciate it. We'll talk to you about it. I'm going to go ahead and hang up here and say goodnight to the folks. Guys, thanks for joining me.
We're
Take
sure
care, guys.
minutes early tonight.
Well, we got to quit on time. Look, I don't get fed until I shut this thing down.
So gosh, we're not done here.
Them's the rules.
7:01.
Well, I'll tell you
Some
what.
rumbling in the background.
I'll tell you what. Hold on, I can do this. Hang on.
What?
There. That's going. And that.
Night, Max. Can't wait.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Steve. Good night, Ken. Good night, John Boy.
Yeah, we did that.
Thank you, guys.
Communication terminated.
Guys, thanks for joining me. Hope you had a great evening. We'll see you later. And as always.
Thank you.